Okay, I would like all of you to check your LMS, okay, whether you have received the written script for this. Anyone didn't receive? So if you have received, can you give me a thumbs up? Yes, in your LMS. Okay, now look at the answer look at the comments that I have provided. I don't have a model script for this. Short answers, I don't think it's meaningful to have model script. But I want you all to take a look, okay, at your comments, and I'll point out some of the common mistakes. If anyone didn't receive your earlier assignment, let me know. Okay, unless you weren't present. Alright, and I want to point out for SOI 16, some of the students went on to talk about comparative advantage. Okay, I think this point is worth a shot, but you shouldn't over-rely on that. Okay, shouldn't over-rely on that. Factor, endowment, and comparative advantage. There may be a possible illustration for SOI 16. But I just want to move on to the next question already. Okay, the earlier lesson 27, I believe. Was it lesson 27? Okay, on patterns of trade. Okay, I want you all to look at the comments that I had. So I'm going to assume most of you all have looked through the script. Okay, so I'm just going to point out two big issues here. Okay, so patterns of trade. Last week we actually covered patterns of trade, right? Okay, so what are the important components that we need to look out for patterns of trade? Okay, so first of all, okay, we have to explain in the form of, I will probably use the book. Okay, if you have the book, can join me. Okay, you want to use these three. Volume, how much you sell and buy between your trading partner, who do you trade with, your direction, and your composition. So for those who weren't present here, okay, please join me. Volume, composition, and direction. So when you're supposed to explain patterns of trade, these three must be in, right? When I look at your script, if I don't see volume, composition, or direction, how can I give marks? Okay, because this is the question requirement. Okay, so make a star here. Okay, whenever we are concerned about POT, must relate to these three. So now, can anybody tell me which of these three is the least important? I'm so sorry, I wrote the wrong thing. This is direction. Okay, and this is composition. Can anybody tell me which of these three is the least important in this question? Yeah, I'll just flash the question one more time. Okay, this is the question. And tell me which is the one that is least important. Okay, so the question has already predetermined the patterns of trade between these two countries. Okay, so direction is the one that is of the least important. Okay, so you will want to try your best to illustrate either volume or composition. And between the two, which one is going to be more important? Obviously, composition is going to be more important, right? You read the entire extract, okay, they are telling you different factor endowment. Okay, different countries have different comparative advantage. So your answer should be centric around composition. Okay, regardless of how the question changes. Right? Okay, but I'm just saying with regards to this question. Okay, so when you see an essay question, for instance, okay, all three may be equally important. But for this question especially, okay, this is the MVP. I don't see composition, I don't give marks. Okay, next. Okay, if you look at this particular question, there is this particular most of the students brought up one of this a illustration for China. Okay, let's do a search on China. Okay, so some of the students brought this. China has dominated manufacturing, low-cost manufacturing, becoming more expensive. And, okay, companies are shifting out from China. So now, when you're supposed to use this, okay, as a point for patterns of trade, how are we going to establish or build this point? Remember, China is a third party down here. China is not going to influence the POT between Singapore and Africa. Okay, this is bilateral relationship, right? So the way to connect this point is to relate China to Africa. So most of the students were not able to draw the connection between China to Africa. So how do we draw the relationship between China to Africa? So we have to make some simple inference here. We can see that China has no longer has cost advantage, right? And that being said, there's a trend to Africa. You can see that many countries are shifting manufacturing out of China, possibly to Africa. So how can we connect the dots here? Okay, so in other words, it simply means that Africa may be able to develop CA in low-cost manufacturing, right? And why is Africa a potential beneficiary? Then you have to read a little bit more. You can see that many companies are shifting out manufacturing out of China, right? So which companies are those? Okay, it could be domestic Chinese firms. Okay, it could be foreign firms that are offshoring, okay, to China, okay, to build to Africa to build production plants there. Then you can connect the dots. Okay, so once foreign manufacturing firms are able to establish manufacturing plants in Africa, okay, this can help them to develop comparative advantage. Okay, so that's the missing link. So when students typically just quote, okay, and illustrate that Africa is going to be better off, they don't show this link. Okay, they don't show how comparative advantage is developed. They don't show the factor endowment of capital goods will be accumulated. Okay, then in that case, okay, you're not going to get a credit. Okay, so this one important. Okay, you have to connect the dots between China to Africa. Is everyone clear? Yeah, if you use this point. Okay, so having said that, okay, I believe more or less settled, okay, for patterns of trade. Okay, so I will do one round of thorough recap, okay, for what we have covered for the last week. Okay, we'll go for a quiz. Then after that, okay, we'll start our lecture test for today. Is everyone okay? All right, now everyone, okay, type out one concept or one something that we have covered last week. Okay, without looking at the notes. I'm so sorry I'm not able to stop my screen share. I have to share something. Okay, this is my setting. Okay, but I would like all of you to type out something that you have learned last week. Inter and intra-industry trade. So later, inter and industry trade will be tested, okay, in the quiz. What else? Or can I have a quick show of hands who haven't started trade in school? Haven't started. Okay. Okay, noted about those who has some ongoing relocation at home. I acknowledge, sometimes it's quite frustrating to have classes in your own room, right? Yeah, I second that when my dog suddenly bark. Costs and benefits of trade. Okay, so okay, I will probably cover this one first, Okay, benefits and costs of trade followed by patterns of trade. Okay, so a lot of students, okay, they what do they do? Okay, they just know the acronym. Okay, but when you ask them to develop the point, you have issues developing the point. Okay, so we have cover and we have vowed here. Okay, vowed means what? You get married, right? Then you wear a ring. If not, look at your parents whether they still wear the wedding band or not. I'm so sorry. This morning when I woke up, I woke up with a nasty sore throat. I'm not sure whether I can can continue classes in the afternoon, but I'll try my best to persevere. Okay, so when I ask a question, can you all answer? Okay, because I don't think I can ask too many questions repeatedly. Alright, okay, starting mostly after CT. Okay, so this is the latest school to start. Okay, so for benefits of trade 1 and 2, they are used in conjunction. Okay, higher consumption of goods and services and higher world output. So if you want to use these 2 points, then you will have to look at the 4 tables. The 4 tables was used some time back. Okay, I think it was 2 lessons back. Okay, you have to use the op cost table to explain. Only with op cost table, then you can illustrate, okay, consumption and world output going up effectively. Okay, so you have to use the op cost table. Okay, but if you are taking the new syllabus, then you have to weigh in what SEAB says and what SEAB doesn't. I remember. Okay, make sure you download a copy of this. I'm not sure whether I've uploaded this in the LMS. Okay, you can see here, okay, especially for students who are taking the new syllabus. Okay, SEAB specified. Don't need to bring in numbers. Alright, so if you don't need to bring in numbers and yet, the op cost table is required, so it only points out to one thing. Okay, these 2 points are going to be lesser points. Not so important. Especially if you are taking the new syllabus. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, you need the op cost table to explain. But if SEAB tells you that this is not so important, okay, then in that case, these 2 points, okay, we will have issues developing them if you don't use the op cost table. Okay, so if this type of question ever comes out, you will want to focus on 3, 4, and 5. Okay, that's why I say that this book, okay, hasn't had an update since the new syllabus came out this year. So I just felt that it's appropriate to bring to all your attention. Okay, which are the points that are more important and less important. Okay. So, okay, item 3, greater variety of goods and services. So what was covered last week? Okay, so if you still remember, okay, if we want to explain benefits and costs of trade, there must be a exchange. Please write this down. Must be an exchange. So no matter which point you develop, you must relate to a form of exchange of goods and services. So clearly, the exchange, okay, will affect mainly X and M. So if you are looking at greater variety of goods and services, then we have to ask ourselves, is this going to affect exports or import? Then in that case, you realize that this is likely to be an import point, right? Especially when you can import from other countries. So the next thing is to explain the concept of V, okay, variety. Right, so last week I actually mentioned, okay, how do we distinguish between variety and output? Okay, having more output, okay, consuming more goods does not necessitate variety. Okay, variety is choices. Okay, so you want to bring up or relate to choices. Having more choice, right? Okay, so for the girls, if you have a lot of guys that are actually presenting you with gifts and flowers, it's good, that feels good, right? You get to choose. But does it necessitate that you have a lot of boyfriend? Okay, not true, right? Okay, so remember, okay, variety. Not sure whether that's an appropriate example, but that's what they come offhand now. Okay, so variety. And make sure when you develop this point, okay, you also want to bring in examples. Okay, what kind of examples you can consider? You can look at you can also borrow some concepts from intra-industry trade, which I covered last week, right? So you notice that for intra-industry trade, okay, the main preference is for differentiated goods. Same kind but differentiated good. So for instance, okay, if I don't feel like having strawberries, okay, from South Korea, I can acquire or eat strawberries from United States. Different variety, right? Okay, maybe they have a different degree of sweetness. Okay, so make sure you bring in examples. You can bring in a intra-industry example of a differentiated good, or possibly, okay, inter-industry in the example. For instance, okay, I can have many variety of fruits that's imported, okay, from other countries. Okay, mango from Thailand, okay, oranges from United States. It doesn't really matter. I just want to see an example. Okay, and the examples can be exemplified with intra or inter-industry, okay, to showcase variety. Important, Okay, so item 4, okay, if you were to develop economic growth, oh yes, one more thing I forgot. Okay, make sure you relate, okay, what is the significance of choices and example. Benefits and cost question, okay, you have to systematically relate them to macro and micro objectives or problem. So we can see that with more choices and examples, okay, what kind of micro or macro objective will be met? Then you can see that when consumers have more choices, okay, this will promote higher consumer welfare, right? Okay, and if you want to relate to standard of living, you also can. Okay, material, non-material standard of living. Non-material, right? Because you are theoretically not consuming more goods and services. It's just more choices. Right, so item 4, okay, make sure if you want to develop item 4, okay, you want to illustrate, okay, how does trade promote economic growth? Some of the schools also use this term called engines of growth. Engines of growth. They are used interchangeably. Okay, so you want to illustrate, okay, how, okay, when there's trade, X minus M will increase. Right, I've mentioned this before. Trade is a two-way street. Right, you can buy more to from the rest of the world, and you can sell more to the rest of the world. Of course, we assume that there are no trade barriers, right? So, what is the prerequisite, okay, for this particular point to work? For those who have copied that last week, what is the assumption that we need to make in order to experience growth when both X and M goes up? How do we ensure that there is positive X minus M when X and M goes up simultaneously? Then we probably want to make this assumption. What assumption? Okay, the growth in X is going to exceed the growth in M. Okay, then we are going to have, okay, an increase in AD and actual growth. Okay, so for students who develop this point, who choose to develop this point, remember, okay, the focus of this question is not so much on using ADAS framework. You still need to. Okay, but I am looking out for how exchange arise. This one is important. Okay, so does exchange arise because of abolition of your trade barriers? Then X minus M goes up. Or does exchange arise, okay, when countries focus on the good that they have a comparative advantage and they import goods that they have a comparative disadvantage? Okay, so remember to justify how X minus M goes up. This is the catch. Okay, this is not a random AD point. Yeah, you have to illustrate X minus M. Okay, so there's also another alternate route. Okay, last week I also covered this. You can argue this from the perspective of cost, right? So you can also illustrate that with trade, okay, you are going to have, okay, greater access to, okay, cheaper FOP. Okay, and with cheaper FOP, okay, this is going to reduce your unit cost of production. Okay, when you buy, okay, cheaper FOP from other countries, what are FOP? Okay, for Singapore, FOP will be probably considered such as food, okay, or oil, natural gas, etc. Okay, only with trade, okay, you may have cheaper access to all this. And you can illustrate this as a form of, okay, increase in your SRAS, and this may potentially lead to actual growth. Okay, you can argue this as a point. Okay, so regardless, you can choose the initial AD point, okay, or the SRAS point. Why do I spend so much time on this question? You will realize that. Okay, later on I will show you. Okay, so the last one, okay, reaping economies of scale. Okay, so if you want to talk about reaping economies of scale, you need micro illustration. You need firms and decision. Okay, otherwise don't use this point. If you are not good with firms and decision, don't. So remember, the concept that we'll be using here is what? Okay, the concept that we are using here is your economies of scale. We are supposed to illustrate a downward movement along your LRAC. In other words, you have to explain how a firm, okay, will enjoy cost saving, okay, when they increase their production, right? So this really tests you on your understanding on the LRAC, okay, and your internal economies of scale. So I know that some of the students here, they are not particularly proficient in this, so you want to weigh out, okay, what are the points that I still have. Okay, not all points in your notes are the same. Okay, it works differently for different students. Okay, so concept that you want to probably focus on, okay, is specialization. Because trade is entirely about specialization, mostly, right? You specialize on a good that you have a CA. Okay, and when you specialize on a good that you have a CA, you are going to inevitably enjoy cost saving. Then you can reap economies of scale. Okay, and what is the significance of reaping economies of scale? Okay, important, okay, this is the point that they want to focus. Minimum efficient scale. Yeah, I'm assuming that most of you here have some minimal firms and decision knowledge. I'm assuming, okay, but assumption is probably a very bad is a very bad starting point, right? Okay, it makes a ASS out of you and me. I'm just assuming because I don't have bandwidth to go into micro today. So I just want to emphasize what is MES. MES simply tells us that this is the lowest attainable cost. And remember, the emphasis of all the points here must relate to micro and macro objective, right? If you merely tell me cost saving is not good enough, okay, you will want to go further and tell me what is the significance to produce at the minimum point. Okay, the significance to produce at the minimum point will be productive efficiency. Productive efficiency. This is your end goal. And you want to tie in with benefits down here. Okay, micro objectives. I'm not sure whether I'm down with COVID. I'm not sure. Okay, but it seems like the cough is back. But I haven't lost my sense of smelling. But I do know that this period, a lot of people got COVID, right? Yes? Okay. I hope not lah, If I get, okay, I hope all of you will pray for me. Okay. What do you want about the MES page? What about the MES page? Okay, so you want to relate to productive efficiency, Productive efficiency. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the consequences or the costs. Okay, so cost is equally important. Okay, there are some related topics to this that you can use interchangeably. Okay, so once you learn this set of points, it can be mapped out in other areas. Number one, you can talk about what? Okay, arguments for protectionism. Okay, so this is one of the... So most of the points are interrelated or stacking with one another. Okay, so I'm not saying that this will entirely replace arguments for protectionism. Okay, but this is a good starting point. Okay, if you panic or if you didn't study enough, then you can possibly consider all this. Okay, so we have VOWED. Okay, make sure you know what's the significance of all this. Okay, so I'll just go through one more time. Okay, for external shocks, vulnerability to external shocks, okay, is something that you see in soy 16. Okay, if you realize. Okay, for China, for instance, why do they need to rebalance inwards? Because okay, they may be reliant on trade, especially for countries that X minus M has a huge component. Then in that case, okay, when you're reliant on other countries, when other countries experience an external shock, when there's a foreign recession, this is going to affect you from a fall in trade volume, especially exports to the rest of the world. Okay, you can argue from the perspective of a fall in AD, okay, and the nature of the economy. Okay, so refer to soy 16. Okay, soy 16 is a good starting point. Okay, you can look out for China's rebalancing act. Why is that so? Okay, vulnerable to external shock. Okay. So the other one that you want to consider, just now I used the word reliance a couple of times. Okay, but you have to distinguish. Okay, these 2 points can be argued separately. Okay, so when we want to talk about reliance here, we can talk about what? Okay, we can talk about supply shock, or we can talk about cost push inflation. Okay, so you will possibly want to talk about, I'm just listing down here, how do we develop the points here? So we have to connect the dots. Okay, so if we are overly reliant on other countries on factor of production, then in that case, it's going to be an issue, right? You realize that, okay, in Europe, okay, you realize that a lot of countries, okay, are experiencing an energy shortage. Why? Okay, because of a war in Russia, right? And because of the trade barriers that they impose on Russia. Russia is the biggest natural gas exporter to the entire Europe. Then you can see that right now, okay, most of them are scrambling, okay, for a solution. How can I de-emphasize on Russia and build, okay, a reliable source of factor of production or natural gas to sustain my own country's production? So this is what happens, okay, right now, exactly right now in Europe. Okay, cost push inflation. Another way to develop this point is to illustrate inequity. Remember, it's all goals related. The earlier point you want to relate to fall in actual growth. Okay, inequity can also arise, right? Especially the lower income earners. Okay, when they face a rapid increase in prices of necessities like crude oil, like food. Okay, then they will lose accessibility to those. Okay, so you realize that all goals related. Okay, so later on, if this particular question comes out, link it to a goal or a problem, right? If not, you're just barely scratching the surface. And examples are exceptionally crucial, okay, for trade examples. And most of the time, the preamble will satisfy the example. It will give you that. Okay, that's what I see from the latest development from SEAB. Okay, otherwise, having a good few examples at the back of your head is good enough. Okay, item 3. Okay, worsening of your balance of payment. Okay, so these 2 points are mirror image. Mirror image. Okay, so the assumption for economic growth happens when X exceeds M. But we cannot be sure if M exceeds X. Right? So when the country is exposed to trade, when they buy more from the rest of the world as compared to when they sell more to the rest of the world, this will worsen your balance of trade, current account, and your balance of payment. So when you develop this point, make sure you develop what? Okay, make sure you bring in a consequence of BOP deficit. Consequence. What is undesirable? Is it that you're going to draw down your reserves? Is it that you're going to incur more foreign debt? Okay, etc. Okay, item 4, structural unemployment. This is the golden illustration, okay, for cost of unemployment, cost of free trade. Okay, so how do we develop this point? Okay, so remember, okay, our starting point, a very good reference point is your comparative advantage. Right? How do we, why will countries focus on goods that they have a comparative advantage? Because lower op cost, right? because gains of trade, right? In other words, okay, the country will have to de-emphasize on areas that they have a comparative disadvantage. And they will have to import goods from other countries. So you can see that the combination of these two, I despecialize and I import, possibly cheaper imports of the industry that I de-emphasize on. This is going to create unemployment, in that particular area. So the example that you want to use is the op-cost table. Op-cost table provides us with a very good illustration. Right? You can see that, US is going to have a CA in wheat, China CA in cloth. So in other words, US is going to de-emphasize on cloth, right? Focus on wheat, and they're going to import, possibly cheaper cloth from China. So you can see that the cloth industry in United States will be possibly affected, by structural unemployment. So make sure you're able to illustrate how jobs are displaced because of job skill mismatch as a result of trade. So no trade, no marks for this. And the last one, will be demerit goods. If you want to talk about demerit goods, remember to relate it to what? What is the concept of demerit goods? Where is it tested? Market failure, right? So market failure will be micro objectives. Then you possibly want to illustrate how this worsens allocative efficiency, from the micro perspective. It's all centric around problems and goals. No problems, no goals, no marks. Now, I don't know whether I have opened this up. Give me a second. Have I opened this up? Well, actually, you can take a look at the LMS. I will show you how it looks like in the for a trade question that looks like. Can you look at the past year prelim papers? I have some issues with my LMS. Give me a second. Look at past year prelim papers. I'm going to show you how does trade looks like, in last year question, and why all the more, you all should not fear or avoid trade. So you can look out for the paper 2 last year. I think some of you have access, some of you don't have lah. You can see this one. Explain the benefits and costs of globalization to Singapore. And this is a very standard problem policy approach. You normally don't see this anymore. You look out for the earlier questions, 4 and 5, the macro questions. For those who picked macro questions last year, the 4 and 5 wasn't a good choice. 6 is actually an MVP. I'm going to explain to you why 6 is an MVP. Benefits and costs of globalization. Why are we studying this table? Because trade is one of the 3 factors of globalization. Essentially, you can use whatever that we learned here, to explain globalization. So the points are actually overlapping. That's provided if you invested time and effort here. Are they difficult? I don't think so. But I would suggest you all to take a look at question 4 and 5 last year. Then you can have an informed decision. Maybe 4 and 5, you tell me whether are they good choice or not. Patterns of trade. Just now I actually briefly covered patterns of trade already, right? I just want to touch on this one more time. Patterns of trade. You will want to cover volume, direction, composition. Either of these 3 are missing, you don't get a credit. I'm also in the midst of compiling the 2022 prelim and A-level questions all together in a single question pack. So I want you all to look at how trade questions are actually phrased in different schools, and of course the A-level question last year. Then you can see that patterns of trade is actually worth a shot, because the way how questions are phrased are normally unambiguous. They are quite straightforward for patterns of trade. So long as you get these 3, you'll get a credit. And for patterns of trade, you will want to differentiate between the 2. Is it inter-industry trade? Or, please flip this for students who haven't flipped this. Is it inter-industry trade or intra-industry trade? What's the key difference? Okay, I think just now somebody brought up. Intra-industry trade, we are looking at same kind, but differentiated. Inter-industry trade, we are looking at different goods, different kind of goods. Okay, so different kind of goods are primarily propelled by CA and factor endowment. Okay, so evidently in lesson 27, it is inter-industry trade. Does it mean that intra-industry trade is any less important? No, you still can use those. Okay, there are cases where you still need to identify. Okay, so make sure when you enter the exam hall, you're able to differentiate between the two. Looking at the extract, you're able to identify what is the trade pattern. Are they trading similar goods or are they trading different goods? Then the factors that propel similar goods and different goods are different. Okay, so I reckon that I covered quite a bit last week. I'm not going to cover more. I just want to emphasize on 1 and 4. Okay, 1 and 4 are the most used factors for inter-industry trade. 1 and 4. So you realize that in the entire lesson 27, it is factor endowment centric, right? Yes. Okay, Singapore. Why would Singapore have a comparative advantage in water management? Okay, lesson 27. You see here, airport. You see that? Okay, port and airport services, urban solutions, wastewater management. Why? Okay, what is the concept behind this? Concept behind this is they have comparative advantage. And why would they have comparative advantage? They must have the necessary factor endowment. Why would they have the factor endowment? So we would work backwards and backwards and backwards. Okay, the concept that is tested is this. What are your sources of comparative advantage? Right? Okay, is it your factor endowment? Is it your technology? Okay, or has your comparative advantage changed over time? Okay, so make sure you're able to illustrate this. Okay, and you can see that sometimes inter-industry trade would not happen or would happen when a country has their comparative advantage eroded. So also look out for comparative disadvantage. Yeah, this is some of the questions that I suspect will be coming up. Okay, not all the time will be CA. You can also look out for comparative disadvantage. Then it can explain the composition on when you lose a particular advantage, right? Okay, what are the type of goods that you can buy and sell from the rest of the world? It will be different. Okay, barriers to trade, is something that we will be moving on, to protectionism, or what we call trade barriers. Concept is known as protectionism. So protectionism will influence all volume, direction, and composition. Okay, the biggest example that we see is Russia now, right? No countries would like to deal with Russia. Okay, even if there are existing trading relationships with Russia, things are going to be not quite the same. For instance, countries are likely to impose a firearms export ban to Russia. Agreed? Okay, they don't want to be what? They don't want to be caught at the wrong side of the war, or promoting the war and invading human rights. So you can see that a lot of countries are actually explicitly saying that I don't want to deal with Russia entirely. Okay, direction will fall, or I will deal with Russia but on selected goods only. All right. So the only possible country that could be supplying firearms to Russia right now, I would suspect, is the country that starts with C, right? I suspect lah. Okay, but anyway, this is not a political class. Okay, so but that being said, you can see that this actually influence the direction and the composition of what you buy and sell. Okay, likewise, a lot of countries will impose a import ban on Russia's goods and services. Right, they want to punish Russia, right? So what is Russia known to produce? Just like I've mentioned, natural gas, right? So they will block imports of natural gas from Russia. Possibly vodka also. Okay, I also don't know what else that Russia is good to produce. Okay, if you know what's Russia good at producing, then you also let me know. Okay, so pay attention to Fitbit, especially factor endowment and barriers to trade. okay, this will actually promote inter-industry or will change the pattern of inter-industry trade. Okay, so with this, I have come to the end of the thorough recap. Okay, I will want to start a quiz. Okay, so everyone, please join me in the quiz. I'm expecting 2 more, right? Who else? 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, no problem about the camera, but quickly join the quiz. Thanks. Whoever that is not in. Okay, for whoever that is in, quickly okay, someone mentioned that internet connection not good. Okay, then you do on your own. Okay, so I'm going to start. Alright, well done ladies who made it to the podium. Okay, I'm not too sure about the performance of gents today. Okay, seems they are not performing that well. Okay, we shall see. Okay, your comeback is at the lecture test later. Okay, so I just like to look at 76%. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, I'll leave this and let's look at the questions that we want to address. Okay, I'll pull up the quiz here. Okay, so we have question 2, question 4, 5, question 2. One question at a time. So what is not an example of cause of free trade? We eliminated the wrong choices first. Okay, structural unemployment and over-reliance on necessities. This is part of VAWT, right? Okay, so these two are eliminated. So it's going to be distributed among the two. Alright, so remember VAWT, okay, is just a basis for you to start. Okay, it does not encompass all the points. Okay, so why is market dominance by foreign firms a potential cause? You can see that when there is what? Okay, access to free trade, you can see that foreign firms, okay, may be what? Selling goods and services that will be allegedly, okay, lower than their cost of production. So in the future, we'll be learning this concept known as dumping. Okay, so when they are dumping cheap foreign imports to the domestic market, okay, the domestic market will experience what? Okay, experience a market dominance exerted by foreign firms. Okay, so frictional unemployment has nothing to do with trade. Okay, so what is the acronym? Okay, I'm not sure why people get this wrong. I cannot help. Okay, make sure you know the acronyms by heart. Okay, make sure you know the points. Okay, what is patterns of trade concerned about Q5, right? Okay, patterns of trade is concerned about how much? Okay, volume, which our trading partners' direction, what is our composition? Okay, so all of the above. Okay, so these are the 3 components, not volume alone, not how much alone. Clear? Important to get this right. Item 6, which is the most used factor to illustrate patterns of trade? Inter-industry. Fitbit is more important. Why? We see that most common point that's used is your comparative advantage and factor endowment. Must be Fitbit. Okay, so look out for Fitbit. Very, very important point. Okay, so item 8 and item 9. Okay, what is item 8? What is not an example of inter-industry trade? Okay, so trade arising due to preference for differentiated good of the same kind. What is this? This is intra-industry, right? So you can see that trade arising from different outcomes. This is what? Okay, this is F, factor endowment. Factor endowment will cause difference in outcomes. Okay, preference of different types of good. This is inter-industry trade. Okay, trade barriers. Okay, this is Fitbit here under your B. So yellow is not clearly not right. Okay, and the last one. Intra-industry states that trade will occur across different industry. No, okay, intra-industry is same industries or similar industries. Different industries must be inter-industry. So having said that, okay, I have reached the end of the quiz. Okay, I will call for a short break. Okay, I will give you all excuse me, 10 minutes break. So in this 10 minutes, I want you all to digest what was covered earlier. Okay, and when you come back from the quiz, make sure you are refreshed, you are prepared, because it will be a closed book exam. Clear? Okay, I'll see you all in 10 minutes time.
So I can go to the second question.
Oh, give me a second. I set a timer first.
Right.
Okay, second question. This one? This one? You need me to explain this again?
Yeah.
Okay, so red is blue is also a cause of free trade. Okay, you may want to write this down on top of VAWT. Okay, market dominance is also a possible point. Why is this so? You can see that foreign firms, okay, when they have access to trade, what can they do? Okay, they can potentially, okay, flood the domestic market with cheap imports. So these cheap imports could be genuinely goods that they have a competitive advantage, or it could be because they receive, okay, foreign aid, okay, from their own government. Okay, so in that case, yeah, they are going to have some form of subsidy in their goods and services when they sell to this domestic country. So what's going to happen to this domestic country with flooded with cheap imports? Then this is going to create unemployment, right? Okay, especially there's a displacement of, okay, domestic workers because of a preference of cheaper imports. Okay, so market dominance, okay, this is the concept behind. Okay, so this concept is also related to dumping, okay, that we will be covering under protectionism. So A is clearly not right. Okay, A will happen anytime, with or without trade.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Alright everyone, okay, we have to start the lecture test right now. Camera on. Okay, so if you're having your breakfast, make sure you can write and at the same time eat your breakfast. I'm not going to judge you on what you do and what you don't. If you can write with your right hand and eat with your left hand, be my guest. Okay, so this will be the question. So I won't be able to police or to ensure that you guys will adhere to the exam standards, but please do so on your own end. Okay, no notes, no lecture notes, no chat GPT, nothing, right? So you and your writing script. And I'll give you 20 minutes camera on at all time if possible. Okay, so with that, once you're ready, your 20 minutes will start now. Good luck. So this is a mini lecture test. I don't think that anyone is going to opt out from here, huh? Alright, that's all the time we have. So once you're ready, you can prepare your green pen. I will do a correction with you together. And before you leave this call, make sure you download the answer key. Okay, because not everyone has taken this lecture test, I cannot upload this at the moment. Otherwise, it will be uploaded no later by 4:30 p.m. today. Okay? Everyone back, okay, with your green pen? Alright, so now, how many of y'all found this question easy? Easy. Doable. Let's not say easy lah, doable. Can do lah, huh? Okay, so for those who found it doable, how many points did you bring? Or how many points do you think you should bring? 3 wrote 2. So do we have a standardized answer? Or for those who have tried, everyone who have tried, how many points have you brought? Three. So why did I ask this question? I asked this question for a very specific reason. Remember just now I've shown you all, okay, how does your A-levels look like? The trait question. Okay, so now let's take a look at that again. So today I'll probably be approaching this question from a more holistic perspective. Okay, how does it look like in the actual A-levels exam? Okay, so everyone, if you can join me, we can open up paper 2 for last year. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so we have 6 questions. We are going to choose 3. So you realize that trait question, okay, there's a good chance that it will be the last question, right? You see that? Question 6. I'm so sorry about the reso, okay, but you guys can make it out lah, huh? Okay, so this is the last question. So do we agree that there's going to be a good chance that, okay, you will be attempting, okay, a trait question for the last question? Yes? Okay, by odds, yeah? So now, when we approach this question, why did I ask you all 2 or 3 points? Why did I ask you all this question? So before you answer 2 or 3 points, what is one condition that you have to fulfill before you consider bringing 2 or 3 points? Okay, as a rational student, you also have to evaluate your own what? You will make decisions based on your benefits, costs, and constraint, right? Yes? Okay, so you can see that the rational decision-making framework also works, okay, even if you are a student. So time is a constraint. Especially, I know in this call that some of you had previous A-level experience. Now, when you reach this particular question, you want to ask yourself, how much time do I have? Right? The new syllabus, okay, will give you 15 minutes more. So on average, it will be 50 minutes per essay. So this is how I would like to proceed with this question. Before we decide whether we want 2 or 3 points, number 1, you have to see where I am right now. Okay, so if I look at the clock, I have a good 15 minutes. Okay, then go try 3 points, right? But if I look at the clock, I only have 40 to 45 minutes left. Then you have to ask yourself, okay, do I have the resources to develop 3 points? If I develop 3 points, will I have the resources to develop 3 equal points? 3 equal points, Remember, anything that is done in a rush, okay, done with pressure, done with stress, is going to result in what? Okay, compression, right? Rush work, right? Okay, can you all second that? Yes? So, is 2 developed points better than 3 undeveloped points? Okay, so I have been looking through telling all the past year papers from prelims and as well as the latest guideline that's provided by SEAB. So you realize that the latest papers, okay, sometimes they don't tell you how many factors. Sometimes they do explain 2 factors. Okay, sometimes they do. So the bare minimum, okay, that you want to have is at least 2 points. At least 2 points. All right. If you have the bandwidth, go for the third one. Otherwise, stop at 2 and move on to part B. Is everyone clear? Okay, I don't want to hear students telling me in A-levels after paper 2, Mr. Teo, I cannot complete the paper. Every year I have students telling me that. And what do you want Mr. Teo to tell you? Try harder, good luck. Yeah, I can't tell you all this, right? Yeah, I can only tell you that A-levels is a marathon. Okay, you have to persevere and go further. But the moment you tell me that you cannot finish, okay, I know internally that you will be going for a B. Straight away, okay? Straight away go for a B already. Okay, there's no coming back if you don't finish a paper, especially a part B question. I want to make this really clear, okay, in the call, so anyone who listen to this will get the direct impact or the benefits of the call. Okay, so 2 points. Anytime, okay, you realize that, okay, I don't have sufficient time, you may want to sacrifice on your scope, okay, and emphasize on your depth. Okay, but your scope has to be balanced. For part A question, there is no need for balancing because it won't be a thesis and antithesis. Right? For part B question, though, there will be a requirement to balance the question. So it has to be balanced, Okay, so part A minimally 2 points. So what are the 2 points that you guys are supposed to bring? Okay, I suppose that it's not difficult, right? Just now we went through in depth. So before I forget, I will drop the answer key on the chat. You all download first. Okay, don't say I forget. Okay, download first before you exit the call. Okay, so any 2 points. Okay, if you give me any 2 points, okay, I will give you the full credit. Okay, so what are the factors that you want to consider? Okay, the first one. Okay, economies of scale, this is R. Wider variety of choices, this is V. Okay, and this is economic growth, VER. Okay, I'm going to drop C and O all together because I've mentioned earlier on that you need your op cost table for that. It's not practical here. Op cost table will take very long to develop. So another thing you want to consider is when I look at my school's answer key, how do I make the best option out of that? Okay, remember, your school answer key will only give you all the possible points. They will not tell you which points to select. Right? So when you look at your school answer keys or look at prelim papers, you will want to look out for points that you understand and can develop. And you want to be realistic. Okay, so this is a practical program, right? If you guys can deliver what I have mentioned earlier on in words, or rather you can tally later lah, and then you probably don't even need Mr. Teo. Mr. Teo is here to do a very specific objective, exam preparation, right? Exam preparation requires you to do what? Okay, to get your hands dirty. Otherwise, okay, if you don't get your hands dirty, you will never have an actual feel of the actual exam. Okay, so while you get your hands dirty, you realize that all 3 points are born lopsided. Not all points are the same. Some points require more in-depth development. Some points you can get away very quickly. Okay, just even without an exam, even without a diagram. Okay, so I will show you in a short while why are these 3 points they are not the same. Okay, and you possibly want to focus on this. Okay, this is the MVP actually, shortest point. Okay, so having said that, please prepare your green pen. Okay, I'll go through the points together with you. If you use the op cost table, I won't mark you wrong. Okay, but the risk is you probably won't complete. Okay, you don't have time for 2 points. So now, okay, let's start with a simple introduction. I am always looking out for candidates' attempt, okay, to greet the examiner. Introduction is something like a greeting, right? You say, hi, examiner. Okay, this is the scope of the question. I am going to illustrate what are my points. Okay, if you fail to say hi or bye to the examiner, what does it leave to the examiner? Okay, the examiner I cannot tell that, who is my students and when you guys go for an exam. I can only see by your index number, right? Am I going to judge you on what you write and what you don't? Okay, so examiners are very exceptionally proficient in catching students in what they don't write. Okay, what they write, okay, is probably less important than what they don't. Okay, So if you find that it's meaningless to have a simple greeting to an examiner, sure, okay, but you have to be prepared for the consequence of a very rude approach to an essay lah. Okay, so free trade, okay, this is trade or cross-border trade without any protectionist measure or trade barriers. Okay, you will want to establish two benefits. For my art students, okay, sometimes you are blessed with writing speed. It doesn't mean that you should exploit 3 points, because sometimes when you write too much for the earlier questions, you may not have bandwidth for this. Okay, so evaluate your own constraint, especially when you are doing the last question. So first one, economies of scale. Okay, so what is economies of scale? Make sure you start by telling me what is economies of scale. Lowering of average cost of production with higher volume of production, and you cannot get away economies of scale without this diagram. Cannot get away with that. Alright, so you're supposed to tie in free trade to economies of scale. So what does it mean? Number one, you want to illustrate that a particular country without free trade will be stuck at C0 and Q0. Alright, C0 and Q0 tells us that this is the, I put a point A here, inability to reap EOS. Why? Because of an exceptionally small domestic market, countries like Singapore cannot reap economies of scale. They are stuck here. Now, what does free trade promises? You can see that with free trade, okay, there are countries like Singapore are able to specialize in goods that they have a comparative advantage. So the keyword here is specialization. You have to tie in specialization with CA here. Okay, and when they specialize and produce a good that they have a comparative advantage, they are able to reap economies of scale. So they are able to move downwards. Okay, so economies of scale is a movement downwards. So once you're able to move downwards, okay, you're able to produce at Q1 and achieve the lowest attainable cost at C1. Or any points above lah, okay, below C0 is better than nothing. Okay, so points that you want to illustrate: cost savings for the firms, productive efficiency for the economy. Is everyone clear? So this is a key point. Okay, cost saving itself is not good enough. Second point, okay, wider choices of goods or variety of goods, V. Okay, so you realize that all the illustration here has an example. Sometimes an example will be in the question, be planted here, preamble. Sometimes don't have. If you don't have examples, you need to come up with your own. Okay, so notice how this point is developed. Okay, so this point is developed using intra-industry trade, right? So countries like Malaysia, like Japan, okay, like Korea, they are known to produce cars such as what? Okay, they produce automobiles such as Proton, right? Malaysia, okay, Japan will have Toyota, Korea will have Hyundai or whatever. Why is there trade between these countries despite all of them producing a similar product? Then you want to illustrate this. Because of different taste and preference, right? Okay, if you like bigger cars, then you go for Continental cars. Are examples for this point important, exceptionally important? Otherwise, you cannot illustrate variety, or you cannot illustrate how trade occurs, how exchange occurs. There's no basis. Okay, so examples are exceptionally crucial for trade-based questions. So make sure you have a few handy ones. Otherwise, you'll be penalized. Okay, so because of different preference for different types of cars, then, okay, there's going to be a basis of trade. Okay, so there will be exchanges of cars, and this will lead to greater consumer welfare, improvement in your non-material standard of living, because why? You can choose. It doesn't mean that I will have a garage full of cars. It means that I can choose the car that I best want to drive. So you have to distinguish between these two concepts. Okay, garage full of cars will be material standard of living. Okay, the car that the best car that I choose to drive is as a result of multiple choice, right? I make the best option, non-material. Okay, you can also use inter-industry trade here. Doesn't matter. or any illustrations that shows a variety. Variety, okay, like what I said, okay, is you can use inter or intra to show variety. Doesn't matter. Okay, but these two are the so-called more illustrative points to use to show variety. Otherwise, I don't know how else you want to show variety. So the last one about economic growth. Okay, you want to illustrate how it can be an engine of growth or how it can promote economic growth. So remember, okay, the question requires you to illustrate benefits of free trade. Free trade, in another words, tells us that there is not going to be barriers to trade, right? Okay, so the earlier points on cover, okay, down here, okay, you see this particular point cover here. This assumes free trade or minimal trade barriers. Okay, but if you want to be more specific, then you have to tie in the concept of what is free trade. Then you can see here. Okay, when countries establish free trade agreements with other countries and they abolish trade barriers, okay, mutually abolish trade barriers, then countries like Singapore will have a bigger export market, right? Or you can also stick with the narrative, okay, of when you abolish trade barriers and countries specialize in, okay, a particular good. Okay, then they are going to sell more to the rest of the world. Okay, you can either illustrate from the volume perspective or you can illustrate from the composition perspective. Either ways, okay, make sure you relate to higher X minus M. Okay, number one, you want to illustrate, this is a critical assumption for things to work. Import growth must be lesser than export growth. And this is copy and paste. All of you are very good in this. I realize that all of you are exceptionally proficient in this. But sometimes I see this too often. And I don't see the connection earlier. So, I have been relooking in some of the different approaches that I have done in the past. And in these days, especially starting from this year onwards, SEAB has made it very clear that application skills is one of the key criteria. This does not test you on application skill. This tests you on copy and paste, right? You identify the correct concept. You illustrate the framework. So this illustrates application skill. Exchange of goods and services. So if you want to focus on building the links. Remember, when you showpiece an essay, your job is to illustrate to the examiner that I can produce trade essays. I know the concepts. I know that trade has to be established when there's a exchange of goods and services. And I also know that trade occurs when there's an abolishment of trade barriers. Do I necessarily need to know AD and AS framework? Well, this one I put it optional. If time permits, go for it. I know that different schools have different illustration on this. Some of the schools don't even go through the multiplier. Is multiplier the key concept here? Not so much. But is it good to show multiplier? Of course it's good to show. But is it necessary? Is it necessary? Then you have to look at your own constraint. Do I have time to show that? But remember, it's always about the link. The link or the point down here is actual growth. Must show this. And if you want to talk about demand deficient unemployment, must show this. So these two must be shown link. So you can see that in this particular paragraph, two important links, one at the start and one at the back. The connecting paragraph is actually the framework. The connecting paragraph, I've reviewed over time, it has lost its significance. Why? Because students are very good at that. And SEAB has a very weird, has a way to de-emphasize things. What do I mean by that? You realize that the questions that they set are increasingly more creative. A lot more emphasis on application skill. So what are they trying to tell you? They are trying to tell you that framework and etc. is a given. If you are good with framework, good. Otherwise, you probably lose a bit of marks. But if you're not able to justify the concept, you will lose everything. And make sure you have the diagram . So marking scheme, Okay, at least 2 benefits. I put at least 2. Okay, so till now we still don't have clarity. Okay, whether is it 2 or 3, but I put at least 2 to give you a safety barrier. Okay, not 1. Okay, and if you know that you cannot go for 3, don't go for 3. Okay, I think it's a good point. Okay, for most of us to stop at 2 reasonably. Clear? Okay, so now examiner's report, 2 distinct benefits. Okay, if time permits, go for the third one. Okay, try not to use the op course table as per the new syllabus unless you are taking the old syllabus. Even in the old syllabus, okay, you realize that there is a revamp to new syllabus. They tell you that they don't want you to use op course, right? Okay, if you were to look back, what does it tell us about? Why is there a need to revamp? Because they don't like the op course table, right? Why is that there is a no emphasis on op course table? Simple. You memorize, you vomit out, okay, that you expect to get the marks, right? So you can see that this is how the SEAB is trying to steer clear away from memory work. They don't want op course table because they know that candidates, okay, like to memorize things. Okay? So the next one that you want to differentiate is variety does not necessitate greater consumption. I've established this many times, right? You get to choose, but you don't choose everything. Okay, so it has to be a non-material perspective. So otherwise, okay, with this, okay, please make sure you download the answer key before you go and turn in your lecture test by tomorrow 2359, okay, with all the corrections done. I've gone through all the heavy lifting with your in person. I don't see why you can't turn in. If you cannot turn in, then I don't grade. Okay, so you have to bear the consequences when your dad or mom asks you, okay, why is it that there is no update? Because you haven't turned in. Okay, so with that, okay, that concludes, okay, our lecture test. Okay, I will pause the recording.